How's everyone doing today? I'm David Kaplan, co-founder of Death & Company, and coming to you here recorded from my office in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
And I'm Alex Day, also part of Death & Co., partner of Dave, and I'm coming to you from Portland, Maine. Today, we're going to give you a little bit of an insight into our world at Death & Co. We're going to kind of talk about who we are, where we came from, and really what matters to us most, and how that has informed all of our work. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Death & Co., how we got to today, and really then dig into today, where our company is, how we've been navigating during the COVID crisis, and really then looking for the future and how we plan and hope to evolve over time. So a lot of people know us as a cocktail brand. We really are, very much so, but there are some underlying kind of philosophies and ideas underneath those cocktails and inside those cocktails and around those cocktails that make up who we are, not just as individuals, but as a team. So we wanted to share some of those with you for a couple of minutes and set a foundation really to explain more of what Death & Co. is. So for us, it's more than just cocktails. Death & Company is about connection. It's about community. It's about people and the interaction of people. And so we really have always been driven by creating these spaces and environments and experiences that really hopefully touch people and make an impact on their life. And in the early days, as Dave's going to talk about here in a few minutes, that was all very intuitive for us. And we got along as a group of people. We had shared passions, but we never really kind of put it all together in one place until a few years back. And really, as we saw all this incredible opportunity in front of us, it became really clear that we needed to define it for ourselves and put down onto paper these things that matter so much to us. And Dave really took the charge here and created a vision for our company that has set the foundation for everything we've done since.
So as we look towards, becoming or growing growing beyond just the Death & Co. brick and mortar, the Death & Co. New York brick and mortar, which for those of you who haven't been, it's an incredibly small footprint, just 50 seats on a little side street on 6th Street between 1st and A. We wanted to build a company where it was really kind of a shared ecosystem. And for us, that came in forming the umbrella company that now owns Death & Co. New York, Death & Co. Denver, and Death & Co. Los Angeles, as well as our consulting company, Proprietors LLC. And that umbrella company is called Gin and Luck. So a few years ago, we did, or 2 years ago now, we did a relatively significant fundraise, significant for us anyway, raised about 2.7 million, consolidated everything underneath this umbrella. And we were able to now have shared employees between each company. We were able to share assets, financial resources, which has been incredibly important, especially when we start to talk about COVID. But it's also allowed us to really coalesce our mission and our vision and our values, really, all making sure that each element in each business is aligned in a completely sort of synced up way. So starting with our mission, for us, it's really simple, and it translates from each of our brick and mortars, again, to our consulting company as well, and beyond to our retail. And when we think about new business verticals, we think about this mission as well. It's really creating experiences and connecting people. And again, we do that within our doors by providing unique hospitality experiences. We do that by selling interesting goods and connecting those people in that community, whether it's our pirate ceramic mug or our experiences that we'll talk about a bit later. We also felt like beyond the mission, we needed to refine our values. We started the process of putting pen to paper on our values some years ago when we, again, just had our New York store. But as we look to grow, we wanted values that better defined or better applied, really, to us as a company at large. And values are kind of a funny thing. It's almost a corporate speak type thing. But for us, those values were not things that we as owners or as the leadership team or whatever you want to call it, sat down in a room and created. we reflected upon what we saw within the best team members, the people that we were like, man, they embody what Death & Co is. Well, what is that? Let's write that down. And this is where we came to. Connection. We build relationships through intuition and empathy. We talk a lot about connectivity, human connectivity, and that being a driving factor in everything that we do. Professionalism. We're ambassadors of Gin and Lux, and not just the Death & Co door, not just our consulting company, but the company at large. This seems like kind of a cost of entry type of value, but for us, we thought it was incredibly important to write this down, to say it, to emphasize it, because in our industry, it's not always the case. You know, often we're a bunch of misfit toys that end up here, and we wanted to define ourselves as rising above, as being professional, and carrying that with us at all times. ABK, this is a little bit of like insider slang that we use. ABK is always be knowing, taken from one of our favorite, often YouTube videos, and one of our favorite artists, Tom Sachs in New York. He has a phenomenal video, sort of a training video about using his studio there called 10 Bullets. This is one of the 10 bullets, always be knowing. Knowing is the process of organizing things neatly, essentially, but for us, it really means working with focus and working through to completion. And that can be anything, whether it's preparing for a seminar like this and understanding the ins and outs of how we're going to present, or building a round of cocktails, knowing that that round isn't done. And I know everyone knows this until you reset that station and you're ready for the next round of drinks. Excellence. We will forever be chasing excellence. It is a pursuit without end. Another incredibly important thing for us to write down, that, you know, we don't think we're the best, nor was it our ambition to be the best. We want to be truly excellent in everything that we do, whether it's our cross communication between our organization, whether it's you know, our company structure. We want to forever be pursuing improvement. And I think that also speaks to learning and the pursuit of learning. And contagious joy. Right? Like what we do at the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. We think it's fun. That's why we got into it. That's why we're wildly passionate about it. And contagious joy, though the word contagious, probably not the best. We wrote this before the pandemic. Still applies, I think, when you're having fun, it emanates out, and it applies, or it is caught by everyone around you.
Yeah, and like, you know, writing all those down and kind of coming to a consensus is really important to do. And if you haven't done it for yourself in your bar or whatever your career is, couldn't recommend it more. It's a fantastic exercise to ensure that you truly are on the same page as the people you work with. But none of it really matters unless you really put it to use and you work hard. It is amazing how much work goes into finding, you know, even just getting a bar open, let alone having a successful one. And, you know, this is something we remind ourselves of all the time and push each other while trying to find balance. But I think it's important to kind of identify that there's this notion out there that people who have success, especially within creative areas like cooking or cocktails or music, are just simply these brilliant people. And, you know, this cartoon is one of our favorites that I'd probably use in 10, 15 different presentations at this point. But, you know, the urge is like, people ask, what's your process? Well, I'm a genius and it's unexplainable and I am the chosen one. But the reality is that the process is I try hard. I try really hard. It's embarrassing how hard I try. And so we kind of need to check ourselves sometimes too, to make sure that we are always returning, as much as we are passionate, as much as we're determined, and as much as we dive in and work really hard, that we always also return to that final value that Dave mentioned of joy, that this really is fun. What we do is incredibly fun. It may be stressful, but that we find moments of joy in everything that we do. So that's just a little bit of a kind of framework for how we got on a kind of similar philosophical, I guess, starting point. And not just Dave and I, you know, our partner Devin Tarby and Ravi DeRossi and a number of our key people all contributed to putting that kind of vision together in one place. So Dave's now going to talk a little bit about our history and really how we got to this point.
So now that we talked about, you know, who we are and identifying what drives us, we'll give you a little bit of a throwback, and we'll keep it relatively succinct here. or as succinct as possible. Two relatively long-winded individuals trying to give a 60-minute seminar here. So the inception of Death & Co., the idea really started, you know, when I was pretty young. Without going too far back, I fell in love with this industry, wildly in love with this industry when I was, you know, before I even knew it was an industry, probably when I was 15 or even before, seeing, walking through the bar area of a restaurant and just being sort of enamored with the glowing back bar and the promises or the secrets that it kept. You know, cut to immediate post college, I went to work. I went to school for fine art. Went to work in Las Vegas, you know, for a hospitality group called the Nine Group. So I was working the Palms at Rain, which was a massive club. If anyone remembers the Real World, that was probably before everyone's time. It was, you know, it was like a 3,500 person club, not 3,500 square feet like we often deal with today, but 3,500 people could go through this club, and I think like 6,000 people a night or something crazy. And so, you know, my time in Las Vegas was almost my like trekking around Europe. In that I was there alone. I had a lot of free time, and I was just reading every, like, how to open a bar, how to build a business plan. Most of them having the like how to for dummies attached to the name. There wasn't a lot out there in terms of like, you know, the phenomenal array of books that we have today, but I was reading everything under the sun I could about cocktails, about business, about starting a bar, about, and about spirits. And so the idea for Death & Co. really came from almost a reaction to Las Vegas, and that I wanted something that had a sense of permanence, something that was hiding in plain sight instead of kind of flashy and glitzy, something that was incredibly intimate instead of massive, something that stood on the product and stood behind the product that it served versus kind of pomp and circumstance, like, you know, that is kind of the thing with nightclubs. And that really led me to creating Death & Co. in New York. I started on the project when I was 23. We opened when I was 24. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And we were fortunate enough, we opened New Year's Eve, 2006, 2007. We were fortunate enough to, a few days later, be featured prominently on the New York Times Sunday Styles, front page of the New York Times Sunday Styles, with a huge photo. I think still the largest photo we've gotten in New York Times in the 15 years that we've been open. And we were just slammed from that day forward. And the early days there were incredibly fun. You know, one of the things that helped define our culture was that I have not ever been a bartender. And so there was this immediate kind of placement of ownership and authorship, really, of the cocktails, and not even just the cocktails, how we operated, how we ran. Of course, I had plenty of opinions in those days, but our floor staff, our hosts, our door staff, we all kind of would recap nightly and talk about what we could do and how we could do things better. And by no means did we recap in an organized or structured way. I was 24. We recapped over alcohol, trying to close out the books. Very disorganized way back in the day. One of the things that also really drove this, and that I think helped become what Death & Co. is known for, is this creative authorship that was encouraged between the team. So, you know, we were lucky enough, and I think possibly because of that, we were lucky enough to get just ridiculously talented people. This is a photo of Joaquin Simo, who many of you I'm sure know, who now is pouring ribbons and consults all over the place and is just, you know, the world's nicest guy. I think that's on his business card, actually. Phil Ward was our opening head bartender, straight from Pegu and from Flatiron Lounge. We had Brian Miller. Shortly thereafter, we had Alex, obviously, come onto the staff, who we would eventually create all these other things together. We had Jessica Gonzalez, really just, you know, as Jim Meehan said it once, just the Yankees of the cocktail world at the time. And everyone contributed. It wasn't, you know, the David Kaplan cocktail list. It was quite the antithesis. It was, you know, the Phil Ward and the Alex Day and the Joaquin Simo, and that, you know, it was everyone's. They had ownership of what they were pushing across the bar. And I think that transparency and the ownership of that creativity really would go on to inform a lot of what we would do and almost how we would grow. And we started growing pretty early on. Alex started, gosh, I don't know, a year after we opened, something like that, Alex?
No, it was actually like only 4 months after you opened. It was crazy. It felt like a year, I'm sure, to you.
Yeah. Time contracted and expanded in unique ways. And shortly after Alex came on board, I filed papers to start a new LLC, which would be a consulting company. Immediately when I printed out the papers, or when I filed the papers, I got a call from some folks down in Philadelphia asking if we could help them, or if I could help them open up something very similar to a Death & Co down there. That ended up, or turned out to be, the Franklin Mortgage and Investment Company. I asked Alex to partner on this new consulting company. And that really helped inform what we could do. And our idea very early on was to get better at this thing that we love to do, but with someone else's money. And that was the original idea for our consultancy. And we ended up, it's grown into a phenomenal company of its own, of which our partner Devin Tarby runs, and we do great projects all over the place. But that was really our first kind of taste of growth. How we work together, our working cadence, establishing a level of professionalism for me, having expectations of a partner that I had to make sure that I was performing up to task, and we continued to kind of grow from there. The Death & Co book followed a few years after. I think the Death & Co book did a great job of putting us on the map on a larger stage, on a global stage in a lot of ways. It also propelled our Instagram following. So all of a sudden, the Death & Co experience, which is this tiny, tiny little 54-seat bar, like I said, is now accessible to people all over the world. And then you can also follow us on Instagram. And we took that very seriously. And we thought, how can we give people a taste of our world, of this culture, if you're just following us? So we wanted to be more than just pretty pictures. So cocktail recipes, behind the scenes, as much information as possible, and as transparent and open without sort of being condescending or feeling like people are, or like we're teaching. Beyond that, 2 years ago, we opened Death & Co Denver in the Ramble Hotel. So we went from this tiny little space to consulting all over the place, to capturing everything that we could in the book, to this massive program. I think we have 2,000 square feet with the basement in New York, and we have something like 12,000 square feet of F&B that we control in Denver. Not only that, we have breakfast, lunch, dinner, events, coffee program, some light touch in-room dining. Really went from kind of 0 or maybe 20 miles an hour to 120 miles an hour with that. And beyond that, we, in this sort of linear trajectory, work through writing cocktail codex. So Death & Co, Modern Classic Cocktails, was really about capturing Death & Co in the early years. Cocktail codex was really about everything in kind of Alex's brain, and everything Alex and Devin had done together with proprietors and education, and the way that they think, the way that Alex thinks about cocktails, and laying out kind of a phenomenal study of what the cocktail landscape looks like contextually within these individual verticals. And then from there, as we mentioned earlier, now catching up to just a year and a half ago or so, we raised money and kind of restructured everything under Gin and Luck. So that's kind of a quick snapshot, or as quick as I can be, of our growth. And through that period, there was, the need for almost constant evolution. We went from being this 2-person operation in our consultancy. Literally, we would do everything together, and then when it was done, time was done, we just cut the check in half, and you take half and I take half, and that was it. And Alex, being incredibly systems oriented, put a lot of systems into place, but it was still a very simple organization. And beyond that, it was just Death & Co New York, which was kind of almost this self-propelling clubhouse that we were almost afraid to put systems onto. So as we looked to Denver, and as we looked to LA, and as we looked to Gin and Luck, we focused on becoming a company, and becoming a company that we would want to be a part of, and we would want to lead. And also understanding what does it mean to lead a company? You know, Alex went, and I know you can talk about this plenty, but Alex went from being a bartender to being a partner, being a manager, to now being the COO of what was a 135 person company before the pandemic. And I went from kind of feeling just like a freewheeling wannabe creative to now aspiring to live up to my title, which is the CEO of Gin and Luck. And what does that mean, and how do we evolve that partnership? Part of it certainly is just a wealth of systems and structure. One thing that I love talking about that we implemented within our company recently, or 2 years ago about now, is EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is absolutely worth a quick Google. Traction, a book written by Gino Wickman, is kind of the foundational book of the EOS system, and there's a ton of stuff out there supporting it, but we now have an EOS coach we work with 4 times a year. We run our company based upon this entrepreneurial operating system, which is nothing crazy revolutionary in and of itself. It's just all the pieces of kind of entrepreneurial ideas, or entrepreneurial kind of like operating ideas out there, coalesced into one complete system. So that's been incredibly transformative for us. And then there's also been personal changes that we've pursued that have helped propel our growth, honestly. And one of those is, you know, again, Alex is talking to us today from Portland, Maine, and I'm talking to you from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We don't have projects in either of these areas, but our kind of step out beyond, we were all living in LA and growing in LA, our step out to understand that we are, and were then, a national company with robust systems, made us believe in those systems even more and refine those systems even more. And I think they've improved our operations, but they've also improved our ability to take phenomenal leaps. And one of those leaps for me personally was raising that money. We did so in a public crowdfunding campaign. It was absolutely terrifying. I don't think I've ever been more nervous on a daily basis. You know, having the wherewithal and the peace away from the noise of, you know, living in LA before and living in New York allowed me kind of the focus to be able to do that. And I think Alex would say the same. Now Alex is going to talk to us about, you know, Death and Company today, where our company's at, and how we've been operating within really the past, you know, 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of momentum that we felt before the pandemic. Everything Dave just described bred an amazing amount of optimism. And I think what's really powerful, and what I want to walk you through, is that we've been able to maintain that level of optimism for the future. Yeah, things aren't great right now. It's really, really challenging, both financially, emotionally, psychologically, to deal with this. But by banding together, we've been able to really find some focus that has helped us look towards the future, which Dave will talk about in a few minutes. But first, we kind of need to start at a really important date. For us, that was March 15th. Some cities were a little bit before that, especially globally, and some after that. But on March 15th, after a number of days of a lot of very intense conversations, of looking at what was happening around the world, we made an incredibly hard call. But, you know, in retrospect, it wasn't a hard call. It was the only call that we could possibly make. And what led to that decision to close all of our bars on the same day was really, you know, coming to the realization that we weren't part of the solution by even being open at limited capacity. We're a part of the problem. And knowing that, we were able to, you know, come to our team and really tell everyone. And this was, of course, built from a lot of feedback from our teams, from our guests. And we wanted to stop things and kind of put ourselves in check and put the world around us at pause, so that we could make sure that we weren't contributing to really the challenges that everyone was facing. So, you know, as a hospitality company, on March 15th, you know, days before that, leading up to that, we knew who we were. But on March 16th, that next day, that Monday morning, we had to really ask ourselves, who are we and what matters to us? But through it, we were able to really, you know, have some hard conversations. And the hardest of them really revolved around our team. You know, we've always considered ourselves community oriented, and you know, people say that, and it may not really mean a whole lot. But for us, our community is all about people, and it really starts with our staff, our guests, and then the community around us. How do we engage that? And it's a subject for another time, but it's really important for us that we really are there to support our community as a whole, not only around the building, but for example, the Tales of the Cocktail community and the larger restaurant and bar industry. So if we don't have our community coming in and we don't have guests, what do we have left? And it's our staff. And that's really where we turned our attention first, was our team. I'm not going to lie, like those days, early days in, middle of March, were probably the worst of my life. And I think probably for you too, Dave, and for everyone, like it was so emotionally draining. But we had to make the call to lay off, let go about 130 people. And, these are people that we all knew by name. Like we were intimately involved in the hiring and the training, and had spent hours and hours and hours with almost every single one of them. And to tell them that they no longer have a job was gut wrenching. But it was important for us very quickly that we did lose our connection to them, that we tried to maintain it. And that was kind of the genesis of us finding our focus in those days right afterwards, because it could have gone another way. We could have walked away, we could have laid everyone off and just kind of hibernated, but we decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to find a path through this. We're going to fight as hard as we possibly can. And that really did start with the team. And for us, it was about communication. So we started a daily newsletter that went out every single day on Slack, which is how we communicate with our staff. And these newsletters were to tell them what we were doing, but also to share resources with them, to gather from everywhere that we could as much information that would be helpful to them. So as they were laid off, they had to go search for unemployment, and that's a very scary process. So having some guide posts there, as well as other resources that were starting to pop up as our industry was reacting and as the world was reacting to the economy shutting down. And from there too, we also had to take a really hard look at how are we going to survive this. I said a second ago that we laid off 130 people, and that was really everyone from management below. And we were trying to hold on to the management team for as long as possible. And we were able to do so for a couple more weeks until it became clear that this wasn't just a short shutdown. This was going to last a little bit longer. But in the process of doing that, we spent hours and hours and hours modeling out every aspect of our cash flow, the money that we had in the bank, the bills that were coming due, because as we all know in the restaurant industry, you pay today's bills, or really yesterday's bills, with today's money. And so if you don't have any money in, it's really, really difficult to pay those bills. And so they started piling up, and it became very clear to us that unfortunately we had to trim the team down. But with that too, was an opportunity. By kind of keeping it to our national directors, like our director of ops, beverage director, and culinary director, as well as our consulting team and a couple of admin folks, we were able to then get very, very efficient at assessing our business and really understanding it. And through that, we were able to find creative ways to provide health insurance for our team for as long as possible. We were able to provide mental health support for them in a very challenging time. And we're still doing that to this day, free of charge. And that's really not to brag, but to really emphasize that our focus continues to be, and has always been, about the team and trying to find a path through this so that they can come back to jobs. And it hasn't been easy, like rebuilding our business models every couple of weeks has been nuts. And despite all of that, the chaos, the emotional challenge of it, watching your life's work disintegrate, Dave had a baby right after we shut down, which is crazy. But, I think for me, being Dave's partner and him having a child literally in the middle of a pandemic when all of our businesses shut down should be terrifying to me. But I'm like endlessly proud that we have the kind of culture and the team together and the support and the focus that allowed Dave to learn to be a father, which is also crazy. Like, I mean, Dave, I am amazed every time we talk about it that you have a child right now and are able to do what you do. I mean, I know you have a lot of thoughts around it too.
So it was it was an incredibly proud moment for me, uh, in two ways. One, obviously, having our child, having our daughter, and getting to meet Aria, was amazing. But also devoting so much of my life and every waking moment to this company and to creating this world that I want to live in, which is gin and luck. Um, Watching the company, watching everyone within the company, and not just the people that we were able to retain through this period, but the people that we had to let go, and their support, their communication, their drive to assist literally everyone. Watching them all rise to this exceptional, unprecedented occasion, and kind of pull together, and work and coalesce in such a way that was so phenomenally inspiring, was amazing. But in terms of the timeline, just to touch on it quickly, we, as Alex said, we made the impossibly hard decision to close all of our doors on March 15th, which was literally just days ahead of when we would have been forced to. If we would have just waited, it probably would have made the decision so much easier. But I'm proud of us for making that tough decision, and doing what obviously needed to be done now in hindsight. Now, my wife was due on April 4th. April 4th happens also to be my birthday. And so from March 15th on through April 3rd, work didn't slow down. As Alex said, we didn't start to hibernate. We doubled down, and we said, there's so much we can do, so much that we should do, so much opportunity to do good right now. We created almost a completely different company, doing a whole set of different things. I was so amazed by how quickly and how well everyone worked together, that by April 3rd, I felt like things were pretty well managed, and we were to a good place and had a good structure and a good cadence, and understood the financial implications, what we had to do on a daily basis, everything about it. So finally on April 3rd, I said, look, my wife could give birth at any point. We actually need to take some time and understand what the hell that means. And so both Jenna, my wife, and I worked half day on Friday, and then she started to go into labor Friday night. And then Aria was born on Saturday, April 4th, my birthday, when Jenna was due. So incredibly efficient. And I was amazed at the team, amazed at obviously just the wonder of becoming a new parent, but also amazed at the team that I really was able to step back in this crazy time and just shut all communications off. The first time I have ever done that in my life, and said, look, guys, I need at least 2 weeks. And then when 2 weeks came, I was like, I might need a couple more weeks. And here Aria is. She's 4 months old as of a couple days ago. When this airs, I guess she'll be 5 months old, something like that. And it is the most endlessly wonderful and also often frustrating process I've ever gone through. She's amazing, but a whole new challenge. So while this was going on, and while I was largely out of pocket, Alex and the team understood where their focus needed to be, and part of that, Alex was on the playbook.
Yeah, I mean, those first few weeks were completely crisis management, right? Like, we were just trying to figure out what the hell to do and what the world looked like and maybe where it was going. But the inevitability is that we were going to reopen. Damn it, we're going to find a way through this, and we will survive. And so that became a bit of a pivot. We're still engaging with our team. We're still making sure that they feel connected together and that we're connected to them, even if we're not employing them. And it was amazing, as Dave said, to see that their engagement continue, and still continue at the time of when we're filming this right now. One of our bars is still not open, but they're still part of our family. But pivoting towards looking towards the future. And one of the I guess one of the biggest things that we've shared with the world about during that period, or I guess at the culmination of that period, was what our reopening playbook would look like. What are our steps and our procedures, our protocols? And this was really informed by what was happening around the world just a little bit ahead of us. Like the folks in Hong Kong sharing their playbook. As China and Asia and other parts of the world started to kind of reopen, luckily, it speaks to the amazing nature of this community that they were willing to share with us. And we saw that, and we'll pretty much share anything with you anyway. At the end of this presentation, we've got our email addresses, and we'll literally like answer any question. It'll maybe take a few minutes to get around to it, but we will answer you. And so we're already pretty open book about pretty much everything we do. And to see our community do that too, well, that propelled us. And we said, we need to approach this not just as a checklist, but as something that represents our brand, that we feel really proud of, that we have vetted, and that will act to hopefully inspire others to be as safe and methodical as possible. Because when you think about it, what we all do or did pre-March 15th was really engage with humans on a very intimate level. They come into our bars. Our hospitality model is such that we want them to just feel like wrapped in the experience, and to try to recreate that in a world where we can't get closer than 6 feet, and we have PPE considerations and a litany of other things that we do, was a huge challenge. And so the opening playbook, which is available to everyone, it'll be on our website, and we're going to continue to update it as we learn more and have successes and challenges. This was really us trying to put down how we're going to find the best possible version of Death & Co. with all of those items considered. It also, part of that focus too, that pivot, as Dave was learning to be a dad, was refining our systems, of really looking at everything we do and the way in which we operate, and ask ourselves, not just logistical questions, but is this the right way? Is this how we want to operate? And what I love most about this period, as dark as it could have otherwise been, was that we were getting to finally feel like we could come out the other side of this and be the company that we want to be. And these conversations continue to this day, and I find them endlessly inspiring in a time that could otherwise not be. And another part of that too is, making sure that we're having conversations with the world and other people. And we joined the Independent Restaurant Coalition very early on to advocate for, the interests of bars alongside restaurateurs in the country, independent restaurateurs and bar owners, which has been amazing to be a support and kind of an amplifying voice of, getting to hear how Tom Colicchio is struggling on a couple of calls a week is incredible, because these people on TV, but not them as humans and business owners and thoughtful, caring employers. And so, just a little plug here. I'm not sure what will have happened by that time, but go to saverestaurants.com and sign up. And if there is action being requested on the website right now, we're trying to get the Restaurants Act passed. Please go sign up. Please send something to your Congress people, because we need help really badly. So anyhow, great community out there. And part of community too is not just the connection with other owners, but before the pandemic, we were in a really privileged position of being seen as community leaders within our industry, and not having a way to physically serve people. Dave kind of flipped us around and said, well, we need to engage in another way. And we need to find every opportunity we can to get our voice out there. And that is, if anyone follows us on Instagram, has been really impressive to see.
Yeah, and I think quickly before we jump into kind of how the alternative ways in which we engaged our community, I think that sort of place of privilege that we were in, and we are in that we have people in our admin department. We have an admin department. Years ago, if this happened when we just had Death & Co 1.0, we would be in such a different position, and I would be so much more terrified than I am every day. And so knowing that we had a little bit more structure and a little bit more support internally than a lot of our peers, was one of the reasons why we felt like a little bit of a responsibility to jump in and to tackle this playbook, knowing other people would as well. And there's great restaurateurs that were tackling it as well. And we took inspiration from everyone, but knowing that we wanted to create something for the bar industry, we knew that we could and should, as simple as that. And so jumping back to alternative ways in which we found to engage our community. In the early days, we very quickly pivoted our social to provide for other resources, to amplify other resources out there. And we continue to do that all the time. We highlight other folks on AMAs. In one of the early instances was featuring Helbron and Levy, who are kind of like the de facto legal hospitality legal group in New York. And they really were and continue to help shepherd everyone through this, through their newsletters and just through their kind of steady hand and steady voice. And obviously, if you engage them, they're paid legal counsel, but they're doing a lot for free. So we wanted to find ways to, or we continued to amplify all sorts of resources and different individuals. But we also, beyond our platform, we have this marketplace. So we said, all right, how can we rethink our Death and Company marketplace to better engage with our guests? So one is that it was an elevated focus on really just tightening and driving everything, having one unified voice, and bringing all of these teams together. We work, like so many other people, with a lot of kind of subcontractors on various pieces of business. We're still a pretty small organization. Our kind of national team, I think at its most robust, is 11 people, maybe 12, depending on how you count it. And so it's a really small team. So social is not in-house. We work with someone on social. We work with someone on PR. We work with kind of a creative director for our retail. We work with a fulfillment group for our retail as well. And so bringing all of these people together to kind of make sure that we're heading in true north, and that our retailer, that our marketplace has this current focus, was incredibly important. And we also wanted to find new ways to, again, engage with kind of our customers on that platform. And one of the ways that we did this was thinking through experiences. So, you know, as I know many other business owners will likely be watching this, some of these were just like, you know, holy shit aha moments where it's like, oh, we can just sell priority reservations for New York upon reopening. That's a thing that people have always wanted and always demand, not only for New York, but LA as well. But New York has exceptionally long wait times. You put your name on the list. As many people know, it's first come, first serve. This literally cost us nothing to develop, to put this up here. And it won't cost us anything to execute really either. And so this was a great lifeline, and also seemingly a very good value to guests, because we've sold a ton of these priority reservations. Similarly, private cocktail classes, the signature serve. So you can see some of these are kind of aspirational in price, and you know, as things tend to be when they're crazy high prices, press likes to latch onto them. So we're like, we should have some crazy high price things that probably won't sell, but press will enjoy them. The signature serve, we thought maybe one of those. We've actually sold a lot of these signature serve things, which is really just coming up with a bespoke cocktail for an individual. They get to choose the name, and then we put it on the Death and Go menu that's closest to them. Again, this really doesn't cost us anything, and we've sold, I don't know, 10 of these or something crazy. Like, people are excited about it. So finding new ways to engage with your guests, to start a dialogue, and to gather new guests really is kind of what we see these experiences as. And we're, you know, these are things that I think will be evergreen. We're not going to end these when the pandemic ends. I think we'll just continue to find new ways to bring experiences to life and be able to sell those. And this was also because there's such great margin things. A significant amount of the revenue from these went right into our employee relief fund, which we started immediately on the tail end of the pandemic. I think March 16th or 17th even, we immediately started the GoFundMe and got it up to, I think, 40 grand or something like that. And we continued to fund it through these initiatives that we did. Beyond the experiences, we also wanted to make sure that we were bringing new and unique things to kind of life, custom things to life on our site. And again, as a sort of business story, the pirate ceramic mug has been just this insane success piece on our website. We knew it would be, because we had a previous mug on there, sold incredibly well. These retail for $75. They're custom made and designed here in the US from a notable tiki mug designer whose name is Thor. That's his artist name, I guess. Amazing artist. And we've sold, I think at this point, about 1,000 of these at $75 a piece. So huge, absolutely huge. So I think, again, the opportunity out there for us as brick and mortar, for us as hospitality people, the opportunity to find new creative revenue is out there. A lot of it takes some investment, but people do want ways to experience what we have to offer outside of the places that we offer those experiences, if that makes sense. Another thing that we've done, pretty early on in the pandemic, we realized that outdoor would open before indoor. This was a few weeks at least in, maybe a month in. And so we started kind of looking around our contacts for opportunities that may make sense for either a Death & Co pop-up or a Death & Co residency. Literally around that same time, in just a serendipitous call, I got a call from the owner of Soundview, Eric Warner, who we've known for quite a while. In fact, we've done consulting work with his hotel group and bar and restaurant here in Jackson Hole called the Anvil and Glorietta for about 3 years. And on a personal note, Soundview is where my wife and I ended up putting up our whole wedding party, even before I knew it was owned by Eric, and we found the connection anyway. So we love this place, love this spot, natural sort of kinship there. And Eric called and said, hey, what do you think about doing kind of some sort of Death & Co thing here for the summer? I said, we've been looking for an opportunity like this. We would love to do a Death & Co residency. They have a huge amount of outdoor space. Sorry, dogs in the background. Huge amount of outdoor space. So they have a beach bar, a pool bar, and in this picture here, a large restaurant with a large patio overlooking the sound there. And so we figured it out, made it happen. Our New York head bartender, Shannon, today went out there, led the program. And I think it was probably a 2.5-week turnaround from the time we had the call to when we launched the program. And again, all of you watching this know, because you're all in the hospitality industry, we just find ways to work and then to make it work. And this was another instance. And so it was a way to engage with our staff. It was a way for press to have something to kind of latch onto and write about. And it was also a way for us to capture some revenue. So we made a deal with Soundview to capture a percentage of revenue over what they expected to make this summer. So not a huge amount of money for us, because we don't want to kind of gouge them. We want them to have a great summer. Everyone is suffering, but we all want to share in kind of the plus while offering unique experiences to our guests. Another really cool kind of opportunity that's come about is an alternative marketing opportunity. Again, this is the type of thing that we can all kind of look for. We can all strategically try to develop and find these kind of partnerships. We worked with a group called Campfire, and they're kind of a marketing group that works with movies and television programs to kind of amplify or get press around either the premieres or the new seasons, whatever it may be. So they contacted us about season 2 of The Alienist, which is a show based in New York in the late 1890s, and the protagonists. The leads of the show are big drinkers, and it is about a detective specializing in serial killers. So all of this kind of screams Death & Co to them. They thought it was very on brand, and the folks behind Campfire are fans as well. So we found this great marketing opportunity, created a number of videos, custom cocktails for them, mailers for their influencers. Again, just finding ways that feel on brand, that are true to our core, our mission, our vision, our purpose, and that bring in revenue. All the while, we also, as Alex will tell you, have been slowly and now quickly working on book number 3.
Yeah, so, everything Dave described, pretty busy. And in fact, we've turned to each other multiple times during this thing, remotely over Zoom, and been like, how are we busier than we've ever been? Like, our bars aren't operational at all. So that's been fun. But it's also really exciting writing a book. We signed a book deal before all this happened, of course, and we've been working on it for a while. And it was, by the time you watch this, we'll have had to turn in the manuscript. So we've got a lot of work still to do. But, trying to find focus on writing a book during all of this has been a real big challenge. But it's also been a really buoying point of, I guess, reflection, as this next book will be a lot about kind of Death & Co., certainly since the last Death & Co. book was published, but also kind of the future that we see in front of us, and where we want to go and how our company has changed, and our approach to drinks has changed. And so it's been great to be able to take that same energy that we've been applying to our business and the health of our business, and then use the writing of a book to think about far deeper than we otherwise would need to do, even right now as we deal with things. So all of that is to like prepare us. This is all the stuff that we've been doing to get reopened, and we have started reopening. And we first started late June in Denver. We put, as we said earlier, the playbook, all of those steps into action, and it went very smoothly. We opened indoors, and it was an incredibly big challenge and an amazing effort by our team there to put something really great in place. A ton of protocols and procedures worked really well for us. We also instituted cocktails to go, which, for anyone who knows us knows that we obsess over the details, and we sure weren't going to like have a to-go offering just in a plastic cup. So we got, brand new art and beautiful bottles. And those have been really successful, and they're now launched in all 3 cities as of the time of this recording. But we had a bump along the way, and we had a COVID case in our team in Denver. And though the health department there was comfortable knowing all of our procedures, they were like, we're comfortable with you continuing your contact tracing, of us contacting over 1,000 people of our procedures. They said, you could probably open and you'd be fine. We're not going to shut you down. But we decided, no, we're not going to compromise our staff. We need to know everyone's safe before we do so. And so luckily, all of our staff, aside from the one person who fell sick, who I'm happy to say recovered fine, had very mild symptoms, and she's doing just fine. Aside from that, no one else tested positive, and we've had a couple of recurring tests afterwards just to make sure, which says to us that something worked. All this planning, all this work that went into place, it actually worked. And now we've reopened in Denver, just outside for now. We're taking over the street, putting up some tents, and another brand new approach to service. So we've rebuilt the business so many times over the course of the last many months that we now have entered a whole new phase of what Death & Co. is. And what I love about it is that the essence of the experience of the approach to hospitality is hopefully still intact. And we've been getting really great feedback from our guests. Now, as of very late July, actually very early August, we reopened Death & Co. In New York. And if anyone's been there, it's tiny, and we're only allowed to take over the space that is the width of our building. So we have 17 to 18 seats out front right now, and the response has been amazing. It feels absolutely incredible being back, especially the mothership, the OG Death & Co., to have it back to life. So, as we're kind of transitioning to operating again, all the conversations we've been having are starting to come into reality, right? The theory is now translating into real numbers that aren't just in an Excel spreadsheet. And that is aligning with us also looking far beyond. It's not just about survival anymore. It's about what do we want our careers and what we want this bar to be.
And I think, a couple things that I think so many of you watching this will know, that in every single change, you have to develop new pro formas, new business plan, You have to understand the expenses. You have to find the money when there is no money for each of these opportunities. And it's hard to call them opportunities, outdoor dining, specifically when it's really just kind of a really, honestly, kind of just a thin lifeline of survival. But you do it, you do it because you want to be there. You want to be there for your team, and you want to be there for your guests. So within all of this, we've always been thinking about who we are and who we want to be, what type of company we want to be. Who is Death & Co. going to be tomorrow, and what does it look like, and how do we build the company of tomorrow? How do we grow into who we want to be? And for us, before COVID, we started thinking about before the pandemic, we started thinking about how can we further diversify our business, because we believe that is going to be the way that we can better support our brick and mortars, better support our staff. And by that, what I mean is diversify our business beyond just the individual doors, the individual Death & Co's, because those are very expensive to build. We have a lot of labor, and it's a pretty slim margin. Death & Co. New York operates phenomenally well. We've been open 15 years, and it's almost, except for the pandemic, it's just Groundhog Day every day there, and every year. It's 20% net. We do about 2 million and 2 million plus a year in sales. It's not a huge amount for the small footprint that we have. It's great. Everyone makes good money there in terms of tips, but it's pretty fixed. Denver is more complicated, very robust operation, a lot of revenue, but a smaller net margin. And then LA is a very new business, and we haven't yet been able to establish what that business looks like. We were on a great trajectory in the 2 months, 3 months, 2.5 months we were open before the pandemic. But it's a long road to build those things. So we believe, like so many others in our community, that we should pay more, that we should offer health insurance, and we do offer health insurance, but only to our full-time employees. But how do we offer more benefits to our part-time employees? Because we have so many part-time employees too. How do we help them set up and structure for retirement? How do we help pay for their previous education or ongoing education? How do we propel them on to their next career, or continue within us for their career within Gin and Luck? So all of these things to us kind of stress the importance of finding more money, simply put. And to do that, we think we need to continue to expand on what we do. So we already have the consulting company. We have the 3 brick and mortars. We believe that the company, Gin and Luck of tomorrow, will likely expand brands, so be more than just Death & Company, so that we can offer creative opportunities for people that have shown leadership ability within our teams, for them to kind of wrap their arms around a program, a concept, or something that's more reflective of them, and that we can give them profit participation or ownership in those new openings. Like what a cool opportunity to help people grow and to give them a real piece, not just kind of a consideration as a bonus, but a real piece, a real stake in that company. We also believe that there's more opportunity within management, looking to the hotel space and finding more ways to build those relationships. So more ways to open and operate, not just on our dime, but on someone else's behalf. We believe that we can expand within our consulting space. We also believe that there's opportunity within retail beyond just kind of our marketplace, and creating things that people want to purchase. And also working closely with our partner in Denver to better understand the hotel space and how we can partner with him and grow and seize upon new both real estate and hotel opportunities, and start to look to that as well. So really expanding out from where we are. And beyond that, of course, understanding our power within content. What can we do with content, and how can we capitalize on that? I've long thought that, our group is almost a content-based group. We write thousands of cocktails, thousands of new cocktails. We had to, I think, pull half of the cocktails from the new book because they were like, all right, you guys have literally 1,000 new cocktails. And that's not even for our consultancy space. That's just for the Death and Co's. We write so much content. Alex specifically writes so much content. So what can we do with that? And how can we use that to help propel and grow our company? So that's a little bit of who we want to be. And we want to use all of those things to be a better employer. Because I truly believe that if we focus on our team, if we focus on being the best employer that we can be, then all of those other things that people typically chase, awards and recognition and global press and opportunities, all that other stuff will come by way of us just doing right first by our people. Beyond that, I want to talk a little bit about what I see as the future of hospitality, and just kind of a reflection of where we're at within this really tough time, mentally, emotionally, but financially, it's incredibly challenging. But through it all, as Alex said, I think we've been and continue to be pretty optimistic. I believe the future of hospitality, and I've said this all the time, I think we're the second oldest profession. I assume everyone knows what the first is. And, it's largely unchanged since day one. We take in product, we have an environment where we can welcome people, we take in product, we dress that product up, we combine it, create something new, we serve it to people, and we take their money. That hasn't changed for thousands of years, and I don't think it's going to. So I think the consumer hospitality experience of the future is going to look very similar to what it did pre-COVID. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be new protocols, new procedures, ways that we've evolved in terms of how we do things, how we accept money, how we welcome people in. I think, difficult times breed ingenuity and some level of evolution. But I think we're going to sit in a bar again. We're going to sit in a dark, relatively crowded bar again. Maybe the ventilation system is different. Maybe there will be some other holdovers. Maybe everything will be touchless. But we're going to sit in that dark, crowded bar again. We're going to enjoy that absolutely perfectly cold martini that I know I've been jonesing for now months and months and months. And we're going to get lost in that connectivity and that romance again, because I believe that's not only history of hospitality, I think that's also our future. I also think that there's opportunity that's going to come out of this. And it's tough to talk about opportunity when, for that opportunity to exist, a lot of struggle is going to take place, is taking place, and is going to continue. We internally are having incredibly tough conversations and making really hard decisions. And I know everyone else around our community is as well. We're going to see more of our peers, more of our favorite bars, more of our favorite restaurants. We're going to see them close. But through it, I think, like I said, we're going to see innovation come out of this, whether it's innovation in sort of subsectors, the technology and support, the coverage that we see from press and media, the interactivity and connectivity through that kind of global community in different and new ways. But I also think that we're going to see retail opportunity come about over the next 12 to 18 months. Folks are going to continue to find that the best decision for them is to close their doors. And though that's incredibly hard punch to handle, what comes after that is a market correction. What I believe will come after that is a market correction and more affordable lease rates. And what will come after those more affordable lease rates are new people popping up to create new independent restaurants. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do everything that we can to save everyone that's going through this. We hope that you are as well, whether it's through Save Restaurants, who's a leading voice, whether it's through Thirst, advocating for insurance to actually make good and pay, or whether it's through alternative advocacy. It's all necessary. But I do think over the coming few years, we are going to see a new breed of hospitality come out in the wake of this pandemic. So I hope that leaves at least a little bit of silver lining. I hope that we were able to touch on some elements of Death & Co., the Death & Co. experience and kind of our trajectory and operations. And with that, from myself, I thank you guys for tuning in. Alex, I'll let you sign off as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for participating in Tails this year. As someone who's involved with the education committee, it's been a challenge, and you know, if you come in contact with anyone who works with Tails, thank them, because they've worked really, really hard to put all of this together. And I'm proud to be a very small part of it, and even more than that, proud to be part of a community that still, even in these weird times, is finding a way to connect. So thank you again for coming, and looking forward to next year in New Orleans.